So disassembling the rear suspension off of the parts car, which was had the Type R suspension, USDM Type R suspension on it, and so just disassembling everything so that I can actually clean it up. Ended up doing some light paint touch up on the arms as well. Just a couple of spots that had rubbed and stuff over the years that I thought needed a little bit of cleanup. And then everything else got put in the parts washer. Don't believe I did anything with the Vapo Rust on here, so it was really just the parts washer and then a little bit of painting on a couple of spots. So for what was supposed to be just a, hey, let me take the brake off and, clean the rear suspension up a little bit. Obviously you can see the arms are completely broken down here. The brake and caliper are off. There is the spindle and the hub that are taken off, as well as the heat shield. Kind of decided when I was looking at the hub on the back side over here, this is a newer model, but it still has some rust and stuff, and so kind of decided that I was going to put it in the parts washer. Didn't want to do that with the bearings and the hub, and so I want to take the hub off, and at that point I might as well go ahead and take the spindle off as well. So went ahead and took everything off. Hopefully won't have a big issue getting it back together, and we'll do a full tutorial on the other side, I think. Hey guys, I'm going to reassemble the rear control frame. Hey guys, I'm going to reassemble the rear control arm. I've got my manual. This is a Type R specific manual for all the torque specs. The only ones that it doesn't have are for the actual spindle assembly itself, so I'll have to estimate those based on other like size bolts. And you'll also notice here I've got a total of 4 torque wrenches. I've got these I got with some bike stuff that I bought from a guy, and my brother gave me this one, and then I recently purchased the electronic one. So gonna set them to different presets. Obviously this one's for the little 10 millimeters for the ABS lines and such, and then I'll probably have a 12, 14, and then this one is the larger one for the main 2 spindle bolts that are larger in size. So time-lapse looks a little clunky here. Sorry about that. I may have time-lapsed a little too much, but it's hours of footage that I needed to get down. Just reassembling the arms here. Obviously I have all the different torque wrenches and torque specs. You'll see me move it down to the ground on that large bolt. Couldn't really get it torqued on the table there, and so you see me move it to the ground here to get a little bit more leverage to be able to torque the big bolt. Everything else went together pretty straightforward. Nothing major, no major issues with it, etc. I think I dented those little caps a little bit, putting them back in. They didn't really go in real smooth. Probably should have taken deburred that center hub a little bit, but went together pretty smoothly. Everything turned out pretty clean, etc. So pretty happy with it. Back on the car now with the a really clean set of USDM springs and shocks and springs. So pretty happy with what it turned out overall. I actually have new brake pads. They weren't here yet, so I put the old ones on because I need to get the car to paint, which is why this was kind of a priority to get it done. Front suspension is not done yet. I bolted up the old front suspension because I thought with them painting the engine bay, that subframe might get some paint and whatnot on it. And so the only kind of the rear, clean suspension got put on, and they actually did a great job of not spraying it and getting overspray or anything on it. So really happy with that. So I've got the recently rebuilt suspension here. This is off of my yellow parts car that I had. Not perfect, but pretty clean. This is the original suspension off the car. You can tell it's got quite a bit of rust in areas. certainly has the replacement calipers. They look like OEM or OEM rebuilds, but again, you can see the bushings here are pretty shot. Not too much rust, I would say that lightly, but you know, look pretty clean. And then this is kind of the difference between what I just rebuilt and the other side before it's cleaned up. So you can kind of tell just kind of the difference there. So the one update that I wanted to make, I looked in the service manual, and one of the things that said these rotors are actually on here. Normally they kind of fall off, but these are actually on here pretty well. It actually recommended taking a 12mm screw, and not in the holes that hold it on with little Phillips head screws, but there's two other holes, and putting those 12mm on there, and then basically pressing it off with the 12mm. So we're going to give that a quick shot, assuming I can find my 12mm now. It appears. And just going to turn it a little bit, about a half a turn a piece or something like that. And we'll see if it broke loose. It looks like it did. So again, seems that broke it loose, and there's a little bit of tension right where this cap is. That cap has some rust on it. Last time I'd kind of struggled with this, hit the rotor with a hammer, did some things that I probably shouldn't have, which is why when I saw this I was like, oh, that makes a lot more sense. And so we will try this method. It seems to be working pretty effectively so far at pulling this off. It's not requiring, outside of that initial tension that you heard it pop on, it doesn't appear to be requiring too much pressure, and then you can pull it right off. So this cap here, so one of these screws actually came out earlier. This one is unthreading. So again, you know, I don't really understand it, but once you drill the head off, that unthreads very nicely. I've had a lot of luck on cars being able to get those off, but this one apparently not quite as easily. We're going to remove this cap now, and to do that, I had the best luck with a screwdriver that seems to be missing in action at the moment, and but basically a flathead screwdriver. You stick it through one of these holes, and then hit it with the hammer a couple of times. And again, you need to find a good lip, which that was not. This one also doesn't seem to be great. See if we can't find ourselves a nice lip. That one seems to be better. Apparently not. Let's see if we can do it with this screwdriver here. appears that is making some progress there. I have the best luck. Once you get that little bit of lip, take a small screwdriver, hit it straight in. That gives you a little bit of lip so that you can put this a bigger screwdriver up at this angle. And then when you put it, there's a little bit of lip, and if you pull kind of moderately hard up on it, it should dig into that lip so that when you hit, it doesn't slip off. And so that's what I found to be the most successful. And it pops right off. Does say to replace these. The insides look good. I assume that you'll be able to see that in the video. But the insides look good, which means rust and water hasn't been able to penetrate to the actual bearings, which is exactly what it's supposed to do. I mean, the outside's meant to sacrifice to protect the inside. So, but we'll get some more instructions later. So reassembly on the car, I thought it was a little easier to put the shock on first, just working by myself. We'll see how the footage turns out, but pretty straightforward. I did not have clean bolts for both sides going to the chassis, and so that is something that I have to do yet, is to get some clean bolts going to the chassis itself. All the ones bolting the arms to the spindle or that rear trailing arm were really nice, but for some reason the bolts going into the chassis, I didn't have them from a previous parts car or anything, and a little afraid that if I bought brand new ones, besides the fact that they're about 90 bucks, little afraid that they'll come in the regular zinc coating versus the gold zinc coated. Reassembly the caliper. The driver's side, I don't think I have a lot of footage of it for some reason, but I put the entire arm and brake up together, and that was just kind of a large assembly, relatively heavy, and so this time I did just the lower arm, and then bolted the brake and rotor up later just to make it a little bit lighter, a little bit easier to do.
Hey guys, hope you enjoy watching the restoration of the rusty Barnacle, Integra Type R 98111. Please subscribe and keep looking for updates. Thanks.